Hello, I'd like to add my congratulations to those of many others for Rachel Beckman's induction into the KAAC Hall of Fame. I coached Rachel when she was in high school, and one of the things I can say about Rachel is she was a leader. She demonstrated her leadership through her work ethic. I don't know a student who studied more than Rachel. In fact, I'd like to relate a story about how much she was willing to work to get better at academic competition. As many of you probably know, Rachel likes to have her hair look good. So in high school, she got up quite early to get her hair ready for school each day. But she felt like she needed more time to study as well. So she would have her mother do her hair while Rachel studied for academic team. That's dedication. That work ethic is a sign of a leader. That work ethic caused other members of her team to work hard as well. That's what leaders do. They inspire others to be better than they would be. Another evidence of Rachel's leadership was her willingness to support all of her other teammates, whether they performed well or performed poorly. She never chastised anyone and was always supportive, whether the answer was correct or incorrect. She was never the kind of person who would say, "Hey, that was a language arts question. That's my area. Why did you try to answer that?" She was supportive of her teammates, and that is a sign of a leader. But most importantly, I'd like to comment about Rachel as a person. Winning is great, but she won as a good person. As evidence of this, we went to South Carolina to play a tournament at Dorman High School. Dorman had a legendary coach, Jim Garrick, a multi-time national champion who had retired. He returned to the tournament each year to be a moderator. We were heading into the finals where Coach Garrick was going to be reading. Before the match started, he and I were talking, and he said, "You know, I would never have retired if I had had players like Rachel." That's a testament to her personality. Her parents both raised her to be a good person, a Christian person, and it showed. And I think she's very deserving of her entry into the KAAC Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Rachel, and best wishes for the future.
Hello, everyone. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Coach Carney to my team, Mr. Carney to my students, and Tony to my friends and family. I've had the privilege of being the head academic team coach at John W. Bate Middle School since 1994. I know that I'm much closer to my end of time in coaching than I have left, so I wanted to make sure that I spent some time to acknowledge some of my former great players. Sadly, I wish I had started this a long time ago, and other coaches, I would recommend that you start thinking about this before you get to your end. So hopefully I'll be able to get a lot of those students in before I do retire, because obviously Bate has been quite successful at the state and national levels, as I know many other programs have too. Speaking of national levels, Kentucky Quick Recall and Future Problem Solving teams from all across the state are very well known on the national level due to the blessing of having such a great organization as the KAAC, Kentucky Academic Association for Competition, more fondly known as Governor's Cup, and much easier to say. So I know other states wish they had a program as good as ours. Okay, on to why I'm here. Today I have the privilege of introducing and bragging on the Danville Independent School System's first ever player inductee, Rachel Beckman. It's only fitting that Rachel was chosen to be the first, for as you can see on the table before you and on the board, and this isn't even all of them, and they don't include the state and the other trophies as a team and quick recall, this is just a small sampling. You can see that she is quite a decorated player. Rachel has won the most total KAAC medals in our entire school system, starting under coaches Jessica Scaff and Tina Lieber, continuing to John W. Bate Middle School under coaches Tony Carney, Logan Cisco, Amy Bradshaw, and finishing at Danville High School as captain of her JV squad under coach Matt Knupp, and as captain of the varsity team under Coach Rob Kramer. All of these honors, the most significant for me to mention is that Rachel was the first state champion in testing at the high school level in Danville. Not just first once, not twice, like LeBron says, not just 3 times, but 4 times in subject area testing. She was the state champion at the high school level. Also, she had a runner-up finish in that time and many other top 10 finishes at high school and middle school at the state level. That's something that not many other players in the history of KAAC can say. As a Danville School's academic team member, she was first in KAAC testing a whopping 28 times. And 17 times, she helped her quick recall team to finish as the quick recall champions. 19 times she did that. And 17 times, she helped her school win the overall championship, whether it was showcases or district, region, and so on. She captained 2 quick recall teams for Bate, all the way to state in 2003 and 2004. Of course, I know she continued to do great at quick recall in high school, not only making it to state, but she was able to add another first. The first Danville High School captain to lead her team of Kelsey Snap, Hunter Kendrick, and John Liu to Danville High School's first state quick recall championship in 2007. Rachel had many other great academic team accomplishments outside of KAAC, like being a member of the 3-time NAQT Small School Championship. She was part of the 2004 Knowledge Master Open Championship and spring 2005 Knowledge Master Open Championship. A runner-up finished the Kentucky Derby Festival in 2004 on the Bate team, and a first ever Kentucky Derby JV championship with the Danville High School team in 2006. Now, I know I've talked a long time already, but since sadly, due to COVID, there's no conference this year, there's no lunch I'm holding up, there's no breakout sessions for FBS or quick recall, sadly. I think I'll spend a little more time talking because I don't think anybody's being kept from going anywhere. So I want to talk a little more, and I'll leave a few words for Rachel to say on her own behalf. So back to the firsts, in case you haven't figured out my theme by now. The first time I met Rachel was as a 6th grader in 2001 after Bate was coming off his 2001 state championship in quick recall. That team was led by a dynamic duo of Charlotte Crowley and Stephen Crown Weber. And there were a lot of returning 7th graders from that team, and there were 8th graders when she was a 6th grader. Players like Mason Cisco, Kevin Smiley, Aaron Vons, Molly Weston, just to name a few. So as a 6th grader, she had to compete against all of these 8th graders. And she managed to get varsity time against players who had actually played in the state championship quick recall match. And honestly, in hindsight, I probably should have played her a lot more. As a 6th grader, she did get to captain our first ever 6th grade showcase championship in December of 2001. Furthermore, on December 28th, 2001, Rachel was also one of the first and only sights that I was physically able to see. Because you see, I had eye surgery that day, and my doctor said I wasn't allowed to take the blinders off, but only for about 30 minutes that evening. And so I chose to see Rachel and her good buddy, Alex Trebek, that night on television. You see, Rachel was and is to date the first and only Danville player to ever be on Jeopardy. And not just be on it, but she won it. To continue with firsts, in her 8th grade year, she was my first player to ever have major surgery, missing over 2 months of school. She was the first player I ever visited in the hospital. But even back surgery and missing 2 months of school couldn't keep Rachel away from quick recall. She never missed a quick recall match, and she led Bate to many other first place victories and another state run in 2004. Okay. In closing, let me throw 2 more firsts at you. Rachel is the first player I have ever nominated to be inducted into the KAAC Hall of Fame. And she is the first player I've had to never leave KAAC competition. Let me explain that. You see, ever since high school graduation, she has worked for KAAC as a question writer. So she competes now by making many of those great test questions and quick recall questions that you love to play on. I've been involved with KAAC as a coach for 27 years. But since KAAC didn't even exist when I was in school, I think Rachel will also be my first former player to eclipse me in KAAC time. Now, not that I could ever brag enough about Rachel and her accomplishments or any of my other former great academic team members or students for that matter. I'm sure by now you're all pretty tired of hearing my voice and looking at me. So, time to introduce the star of the show. I give you 2020 KAAC Hall of Fame inductee, Miss Rachel Beckman.
Thank you. Whoops. Yeah, I'm going low tech for my part. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Carney. I don't know how I can follow that, but I'll try. Ever since I learned of the Kentucky Academic Hall of Fame's existence, I have dreamt of being a member. And so I want to thank Mr. Carney for nominating me, and thank you KAAC for accepting the nomination and including me in your 2020 class of inductees. In preparing this speech, I calculated that I have spent 21 of my 30 years on this planet associated with KAAC in some capacity. And for those of you keeping score at home, that's 70% of my life. Honestly, I can't think of a worthier organization to have dedicated so much of my life to than KAAC. When I was a kid, Mr. Carney alluded to it, I had some severe health challenges, scoliosis and associated conditions that prevented me from playing sports. So you might fear that I never would have learned a lot of the life lessons that my peers learned from athletics, things like teamwork, sportsmanship, discipline, healthy competition. Fortunately for me, I had academic team. A Governor's Cup was pretty much my only extracurricular activity for 9 years, 4th through 12th grade. And not only did it provide me with those wonderful life lessons, it also gave me most of the knowledge that's still rattling around in my brain. Honestly, there are things that just come out of thin air, and my mom might be like, where did you learn that? Quick recall. It helped me on my Jeopardy episode. It helped me learn to recall things quickly, hence the name. And it still helps me when I'm playing along at home with Jeopardy. Furthermore, my time on the academic team allowed me to travel, which in the years since I've discovered is one of my greatest passions. In middle school, I got to travel all across the state, competing in tournaments. In high school, we expanded it across the state and in the Midwest and the Eastern US. In competing across the country, I met people from various cities and states. I met kids who had similar interests to mine, and some of them I still consider friends. And last, but I think most importantly, Governor's Cup gave me a place to belong. Especially in elementary school and high school, I was bullied for my academic achievements. I always felt sort of isolated, but academic team gave me a place where other like-minded people didn't just tolerate academic achievement, they celebrated it. And I can't express how much that really meant to my self-confidence and self-esteem. So, as you can see, there's a lot of hardware and some individual, some team, but none of it would have been possible without the support of a lot of people. And I'd like to call out and thank a few of those people now, starting with my coaches. At Hogshead Elementary, Jessica Scout, Tina Lieber; Bate Middle School, Tony Carney; and Danville High School, Matt Knupp and Rob Kramer. Thank you all for giving us the resources to succeed, giving of your time, and tears, and blood, sweat, tears, and just helping us to become the best players and best students, and I hope best people that we can be. Speaking of my teammates, I've been blessed with a lot of great ones over the years, but the ones I played most closely with and found, I guess, the greatest success with were John Liu, Kelsey Snap, Hunter Kendrick, Joseph Vons, Cole Stever, and Hannah Kaganmore. Guys, thank you so much for the great memories, all the laughs we had, all the hard work you put into making your own successes and our team's success. And I would say I hope you're doing well, but with 3 medical degrees, 2 law degrees, and a PhD between you, y'all are doing just fine. So keep up the good work. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the team parents, starting with my own very deserving parents, Dan and Mary Lou Beckman. Now, if I were to to tell you all everything that Mom and Daddy have done for me as a person and as a player, we would be here all day, and I know you don't want that, and I don't want that. So, let me just say that anything any of my coaches or teammates wanted or needed, Mom and Daddy would get it, or they would do it. From getting snacks, copying study materials, transporting kids to and from matches, they went to basically every single match of my entire 9-year career, and I would not be here. None of this would have been possible without them, so thank you, Mom and Daddy, and I love you so much. On that note, there are also other team parents who gave freely of their time and resources, including Bill and Barb Snap, Lydia Kendrick, Bo and Susan Weston, Lori Kagan Moore, and I would like to thank them because I know it can be easy to juggle sometimes multiple kids and your jobs and extracurricular activities, but you did it well and you loved kids that weren't even your own, so thank you. Now, actually, last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. John Bennett for contacting me all those years ago and asking if I wanted to make a little money writing some quick recall questions in the summers between college. At the time, I thought, great, a little spending money. Little did I know that a decade later I'd be here making this my career, and honestly, I cannot think of a more perfect career for me. This is how my brain works. I love it. It keeps me sharp. Everybody that I tell and describe my job to thinks it's the coolest thing ever, and they're absolutely right. So thank you for taking a chance on me and keeping me around. I am honored to be able to give back a little bit of what KAAC has given to me, and I hope in my time writing questions that I can inspire other members of Kentucky's best and brightest. So thank you again so much for this honor, and God bless you all.